I'm back. Business 201, Principles of Marketing with Professor Joe Lane. We are in Chapter 2. Hope you made it through Chapter 1 well. A couple of big ideas there. You know, the definition of marketing, the 3 eras of marketing, the 4 P's of marketing. If you got those down, you've got a feel for those, then you've done well with Chapter 1. You've got a good feel for Chapter 1. Now, Chapter 2 talks about the environment of marketing in the 21st century. The environment of marketing in the 21st century. I guess I could stretch all these chapters out fairly long to really bore you and bore me too, but I just don't want to do that. I mean, some chapters are going to be longer than others, but we want to hit the most important things and learn the most important things and then move on. Okay, let me set up Chapter 2 for us. I want you to think about yourself. Have you ever said, I'm sure glad that came along. I'm sure glad I have that. I wish somebody would leave me alone. I wish I didn't have to deal with that. That's just not fair that this is a... All right, here's where I'm going with that. You, think of yourself standing here. Instead of this being me, this is you. The environment that you live in. Are there some things that affect you pretty closely, and some of them may not be good, some of them could be great. Some things that affect you pretty closely and things that you affect as well. Okay? Let's just think about a few things that are very close. It's an environment that's very close to you. Delta Community College, the educational environment. You know, you affect the environment by being here. Delta Community College affects you. Your family is another environment that you have. Your friends is another close environment. Your work environment is a close environment. Now, there's some things out there that are not that affect you, but you really can't affect them very much. The weather. Those things that I talked about just a minute ago, those things like family and things like that, that would be your micro environment. That's that environment that's close to you, that you affect and that affects you. The macro environment is that environment further out there, things like the weather or the economy or laws or things like that. They affect you, you don't have much effect on them. Okay, is the same thing true for marketers? Remember, marketers are trying to bring about an exchange. They got a product, a price on it, they're placing it as best they can close to the customer where the customer wants it, and they're trying to promote that product. Okay, but there's things that are very close to that marketer's environment. That marketer doesn't just do this in isolation. It's not just the marketer and the customer and nobody else is involved. There's that micro environment around the marketer. The marketer affects that environment affects the marketer. Then there's the macro environment, that was the broader environment. The marketer has very little effect on the macro, but the macro can affect the marketer. Okay. So, your beautifully prepared handout for Chapter 2. Obviously, I didn't write everything up here, but here's that marketer, here's that closer environment, the micro. Here's that broader, further out environment, the macro. Let's look at the handout. You can see I've put it on here. First thing I said, the environment of marketing in the 21st century. And I asked you what environment you live in, the things that are, that affect you, that you affect, or things that may affect you that you have no effect on, the macro. And I said this, marketing managers need to constantly monitor the environment. Do these people need to be paying attention to what's going on around them? Absolutely. Be familiar with that. They need to be familiar. They need to pay attention to what's going on around them. Now let's look at the micro. Those things around a marketer that affects them and they affect as well. What are some things in the macro environment, the company itself, that the marketer works for? I said a few things up here. The company, limited resources. Everybody can't get what they want. Strategies. Let me ask you this. Should the director of marketing be involved in company or corporate strategies? Absolutely. Because the marketer has a huge part in making those strategies happen by bringing about an exchange. I think you need to be familiar with the fact that marketers need to be involved in the strategic planning of an organization. But the company certainly is one thing in their micro environment. I'll go the second one. I'll go to the left. Competition. Is the competition in their environment? Oh yeah, absolutely. Our author said something that I really liked. I didn't write it down, but I want you to write it down for me. If you really want to get a good look at your competition, if you really want to see what impact your competition has or may have on you, examine your competition from a consumer's point of view. Don't look, you have to, you're the marketer and you're one company and here's a competitive company. But he said instead of looking at this company as another, from a marketing point of view or a marketer point of view, look at that company from a consumer point of view. How does that consumer or that buyer see you and your company versus that other company? He said that. I like the way he said that. I really didn't say that as well as he did. Let me see if I can. Not that I have to say it as well as he did, but I liked his point with this. Sorry. The key to understanding the impact of competition on marketing is to examine it from the consumer's point of view. I guess I did say it the way he did. Well, good for me. I'd be familiar with that. Then who are your customers? Okay. See what I said up here? Do customers have an effect on you? You have an effect on customers by what you offer? Sure. See what I said about customers? Not all your customers are alike. You need to have different marketing plans. Be familiar with that. And then you have who else affects you and you affect them. Suppliers and distributors and other facilitators. The people you buy your product from, do you affect them? Yes. Do they affect you? What if they go up on price? That could be a problem, couldn't it? Distributors, the people that are getting your product out to where your people can buy it. What if the cost of gasoline goes up? And by the way, gasoline price is still pretty good, huh? What if the cost of gasoline goes up and it's charging you more to get your product out to market, so to speak, to get it to the right place? Those things can have a direct effect on you. If you can find a better way to move your product than what you're doing and you can do it cheaper, that would be a good thing. So I just want you to be familiar with those things that make up the micro environment. The company, suppliers, distributors, folks like that, customers, and competition. And we said one or two things about a couple of those. The company, the marketing director, the head of the marketing, whatever you want to call them, should certainly be a part of strategic planning within a company. If you want to see what impact competitors have on you or what you may have on competitors, examine it from the consumer's point of view. Okay, so that's the micro environment. I looked at something else up here I want you to be familiar with. A major function of marketing is to develop a company's customer base. You want to develop a customer base. The customer base, that's the folks who buy your product. Is it important to develop a customer base? Yes. Is it important to try to keep them loyal to you by the products that you provide them? Yes. Would you like to expand your customer base? The answer is yes. How about your competition? Would they like to do the same thing? Of course. That's why you've got to also monitor your competition very carefully. And you've got to, we talked about the fact that you've got to use different marketing plans for different customers because not all customers are alike. Okay, that's kind of the idea behind the micro environment. Now, I'm going to look at the back side of this sheet. What I'm really looking at is the macro environment. One last time. The micro environment, I guess I'll do this, I'll make myself happy. In the micro environment, the environment can affect the marketer, but the marketer can also affect the micro environment. Now the macro environment can affect or have an impact on the marketer, but the marketer rarely has an impact on the macro environment. Okay. I made a little. When I looked at that, the macro environment, indirect impact. They have no control, but just like the micro environment, marketers need to constantly monitor the macro environment. Very, very important. One of the ways and one of the things within the macro environment, and I listed them for you, the things that make up the macro environment, I don't think I put it on, the social, demographic and cultural, economic and natural environment, technological and political. And then I kind of broke them down here on the back side for you. Demographics, what is that? I want you to be familiar with the term demographics. It's really statistics that describe the population. It's the study of the population. How many males, how many female, educational levels, right hand, left hand, make up what portion of our society and that sort of thing. There's some others. Let me see if I can find. Sometimes I like to go back to the text just to make sure. Demographics are the study or the statistics that describe the population, such as gender, age, ethnicity, education, income, any of those things. Is it important for the population to be studied? Are demographic studies important? Well, absolutely. It's important for a lot of people. It's certainly important for marketers. We mentioned that some of the demographic studies show that, I mentioned it in chapter 1, Hispanics will make up 30% of the population in the United States by 2040, 2045. That's huge. You don't want to, get into marketing myopia where you ignore that huge segment of our market. You need to be tailoring products for that segment of the marketing. We said all customers are not alike. Different marketing plan, different marketing strategies. That's what you want to do. Okay, Generation Y, Generation X, younger boomers, older boomers, Zoomers, empty nesters. There's a number of classifications that we give to different ages of people. Again, does that help mark? All right. Generation Y, born from 78 to 02. Generation X from 1965 to 77. Not that these numbers are important to you. I want you to be familiar with what demographics is. But when we talked about not all customers are alike, different marketing plans, you may not even market to all of these different sectors of the population. But you may, and if you do, are you going to have to utilize a different marketing plan for each one? Probably so. There are several trends right now as you look at demographics. One of the trends is our population growth is slowing. More so than a lot of nations in the world. We're just not having as many babies. Could that be of real impact to certain companies? Yeah, certain companies that manufacture, produce, and sell goods for babies and, toddlers. All right, that could be, so they have to be aware, that there's a slowdown as far as our population. On the other end of that, our population is aging. People are living longer. I'm really happy about that. I think that's a great thing that's happening, that people are living longer and people are active longer. Whereas the slowdown in the population may be kind of shrinking some markets a little bit. The population aging longer, does that open up some cool new markets? Absolutely, it sure does. Those old people, they got money, they want to travel, they want to do things like that. And our population is becoming more diverse. So you stop and think, okay, what did demographics, the study of, it's kind of the statistical study of the population. Our population, our growth rate is slowing. We're living longer, and we have a more diverse population. Are those three things pretty important? They're pretty important for marketers. All right. So anyway, social, demographic, and cultural environment. All right. The natural and economic environment. We are an interdependent world economy. Our economy is just, one nation is dependent on another nation, that sort of thing. Our natural environment, we try to protect our natural environment. Obviously, our economic and natural environment has a tremendous impact on marketers and us as a whole. Technological environment. Boy, you probably don't. But me, sometimes I say, man, I wish it'd just slow down a little bit. It's just, this technology is moving so fast. I just can't keep up. I can't even, I know I'm behind, I'm just I'm seeming like I'm getting further behind. He makes a statement here I want you to be familiar with. Technology right now in the 21st century is the primary driver of change. What causes most change in the 21st century is technology. Companies that get a generation behind in technology are liable to do this. I was reading earlier this morning 25 retailers that are in some various stages of bankruptcy. Even companies like Neiman Marcus, and of course J.C. Penney, Crew, a number of different companies. I mean, with the changing demographics, see, you kind of understand that? The changing demographics as far as our population and technology, you got to stay on top of it. You got to stay on top of your business. Okay. The political environment. We're getting ready to have a presidential election and all that sort of thing coming up here in just a couple of months. Is that going to have a huge impact, or could that have a huge impact on our economy? Could it have a huge impact, just from laws, from regulations? Yeah, it sure could. Now, one thing you'll find with me, I never talk politics with you. I'm never going to say, you need to vote for this person, you need to do that. I would never do that, because I have you kind of as a captive audience, and that would not be fair or right for me to do. It would be unethical at best. But I do think that you would say that the political environment changes from time to time. And as the political environment changes, laws could change, regulations could change, all kinds of things. Could that affect marketers and us as well? Well, the answer to that is yes. So, I want you to be familiar with the things not only that make up the micro environment, the company, the suppliers, the distributors, the competition, the customers, but I'd like for you to be familiar with those things that make up the macro environment as well. And those things that we've kind of chatted about as far as who, controlled or not controlled and that type of thing. And that managers need to constantly monitor both the micro and the macro environment. I think that's what we've covered. I think we've done a pretty good job with Chapter 2. So I think we're going to let that be chapter 2 with your beautifully prepared study notes and with our video here. And that will take care of chapter 2. So I'm going to take a short break. You may take a longer one than that, but I'm going to take a short break and come back in a few minutes, I think, and I'm going to knock out chapter 3. But I have to do that loud hand clap for Professor Pierce so he'll know I'm finished with this chapter. So chapter 2, we are done. See you in 3.